Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Community Exchange podcast, where we talk to friends old and new, in this case, about their careers and the future of the media industry. I'm Matthew Scott Goldstein, better known as
MSG.
Thank you, Pam. As always, the Community Exchange podcast is brought to you by Open Web, the company building a safer, fairer, and more trustworthy internet. Now we have a great conversation with Pam Wasserstein, President and Vice Chair at Vox Media. Pam is a strategic media executive who transforms modern publishing through business innovation, yada, 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 digital growth and cross-platform, yada, 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 technology partnerships. Okay, I did it, Andrew. He's going to yell at me later. Welcome, Pam. So before we start, we've known each other for
10 minutes?
10 minutes. And then let's really quick, what happened yesterday?
Right. I mean, technically, we've known each other in person for a day because we had this podcast recording planned for today. Yesterday, I ran into you in the street near my office.
As I was walking my dogs at noon.
Correct. And then later on, in a completely different neighborhood.
On 13th Street as I was leaving a bar.
Yeah.
We ran into it twice in one day, which is batshit crazy. Producer Andrew says 1 in a billion. I think it's 1 in a million.
It's certainly never happened.
It was very
before,
cool.
But,
okay.
I mean, kismet, right?
Yes. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. You went to some school in Boston, I believe. You said we could talk about it.
Yes.
Okay, some school in Boston. And you did the double major. You did the double thing, right? You did your undergrad.
I was undergrad and then later law school at Harvard.
Okay. And I was at a dinner last night and we kept on saying the most important people in this new AI world are people who are lawyers. And you said you're not a practicing lawyer, but you're a lawyer. So I just think having those degrees in the world of AI is so interesting.
It's, I'd say I practiced law for a few years and then left law and moved into business. And however, there are moments in my subsequent sort of post-lawyering career where law is really at the forefront of what is happening. And to be able to have that grounding and kind of specific training for what otherwise is a pretty generalist business, situation, I do find very helpful, including, now I have no specialization in intellectual property, but it's almost like I know enough to be dangerous, right?
I know, but in the AI world, we'll get to it. Like the law feels like it's so important, so critical in everything that's happening today.
Oh, absolutely. But that's what I mean. I know enough to be dangerous in the sense that I know enough to remember from my IP class in law school that there was some, that there's a test for fair use. And
right, fair use.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Okay. So after law school, you then practiced as a lawyer in New York City at one of the big firms?
Correct, yes.
Which firm was that?
Wachtell Lipton.
Okay. And then was that fun? Was that enjoyable?
I really did find it fun, yeah. I worked mostly in M&A. I worked in the corporate practice, which at that firm is mostly M&A. And just the pace of it is really exciting. And I realized part of what, and we worked on, some of the biggest and most important business transactions of the moment. And so that was an interesting.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Great training, both in corporate law, but also just in like running a process and bringing a team together around a shared goal, all those kinds of things. So,
okay, and then after corporate law, you got out of law. Was that consciously getting out of law? Why did you leave law?
Yeah, it was consciously getting out of law. I think I was one of these people, perhaps some of them, who had gone to law school as a sort of indeterminate next step. I find these things interesting and want to lean in and learn more, but not necessarily dreaming of a full career as a lawyer.
Okay.
But while I was a corporate lawyer, that was really my first taste of business and business strategy, and started thinking more about, I want to get deeper into that aspect and understand not just the process of doing the transaction, but what's the purpose of the transaction in the first place, that kind of thing.
And then after corporate law, you went to?
So I went to a client. I went into private equity on the investment side.
And just, we've never had anyone on this podcast who was a lawyer or in private equity. So it's kind of cool getting this whole different perspective.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Feels very special. But however, there aren't, it's a relatively unusual background for our industry, I suppose. So maybe not that surprising. But yeah, I was at Apollo Global Management for a few years.
Apollo now owns Yahoo.
Apollo now owns Yahoo.
Funny.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Apollo to...
And then Apollo to... So when I was... decided I didn't want to stay at Apollo, I was there a couple of years and felt like I'd really had a business training, but ultimately wanted to do something more creative and entrepreneurial. I was thinking about starting a business, but ultimately, after having a few conversations, was persuaded to join Tribeca Enterprise. The company is called Tribeca Enterprises, but they operate the Tribeca Film Festival. And originally I went over there still in the back of my mind with this, and then I'm going to start a business idea. So I went over as like a 6-month consulting gig and then around a specific project. And then once I was kind of in the door, I ended up staying for, 5 years and ultimately ran corporate development. And so kind of came back to the skill set that I had previously developed.
Did you want to make movies at all?
No.
Okay. Okay. And
no, but I was, inspired by creativity, basically, and being in a position to connect audiences to great creative work.
right. So you have that creative energy, the creative backbone in everything you've done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then after Tribeca Film Festival stuff, where did you go?
I went to New York Magazine.
Okay. Can you tell us the backstory about it a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, of course. So New York Magazine.
New York Magazine's an icon.
Well, thanks.
No, it is. It's one of the most preeminent magazines in New York City or from back in the beginning, whenever it was started. So let's hear this.
Yeah. Well, 1968.
Okay.
So New York Magazine was, at that point, family owned. My father had acquired it in the early 2000s.
Who started New York Magazine?
Clay Felker.
Okay.
Milton Glaser.
Okay.
There were some financiers involved at the time. Alan Patricoff was one of the people involved early.
Okay.
Which, if you ask him, he'll tell you all about it.
Okay.
Anyway, and then it changed hands a number of times, obviously, in that history. There was a Murdoch era. There was a KKR era.
Oh, I didn't realize it was like everyone owned a piece of that back in the day.
Oh, yes.
And it was just New York Magazine initially?
It was.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then at one point was part of, bigger portfolios and then was sold individually.
And it never went to a Condé or a Hearst or a Meredith at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you said
so
bought it in 2000.
2003, I think it was. He passed away suddenly in 2009. And so my brothers and I sort of stepped in his shoes as...
that must have been really hard.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't imagine that. Like when I was reading your bio, I didn't realize that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Definitely hard time for sure. Also,
so you sort of had to leave the beautiful world of Tribeca Film Festival and then...
Well, not at first, actually. So we, there were a number of years where, I was like off building my career and he had already put in place Adam Moss, the editor, Larry Burstein, the publisher at the time. So he had a colleague, Anu Bagaria, who sort of oversaw the investment. And so it was kind of running well. They really had made the transition, I'd say unusually well for the magazine industry toward a digital future at that time. And really, I think that had to do in part with the constraint and opportunity of New York in the name. The print magazine had an audience that was, 70, 80% in the New York DMA.
Okay.
But
I like how you use the word DMA.
New York-ish. That was. Yeah. But when we went online, right, suddenly it's much, much easier to reach a broader audience. And we found that, no surprise, this culture-leading coverage of politics and entertainment and culture, et cetera, reached a really big audience across the country. So I think some other legacy publishers were very nervous about cannibalizing their existing businesses. And New York Magazine, the leadership then really saw it more as opportunity than anything else.
Okay. And then once you got to New York Magazine, what year was this now?
5 or so years after my dad had passed away, that I had also been at Tribeca for about 5 years. I was thinking about next steps. I had an offer to go somewhere. Again, I was sort of acting as a board member. So I knew the management team and, we met monthly, that kind of thing. And when I was considering my next move, Adam Moss, the editor, I had shared that with him, and he called me the next day and said, hey, why don't you just come over here? If you're thinking about doing something else in this space and building, ultimately someone else's business, you might want to check this out. And so I went over originally. My title is head of strategy, and I went on a sort of listening tour.
I love head of strategy people. They're the best people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very nebulous, right?
Okay. But when they're good, they're really good.
But it helped me, truly, I tried to stay really humble about the fact that I had not come up in the industry and had a lot to learn. And, just sat in a ton of meetings. Became CEO I basically put together a plan because we had, it's probably a 3-year plan. And because we had a number of strategic questions that we were sort of treading water on and not really making hard choices. And as you're well aware, and no doubt your listeners are too, this is an industry where things move really, really fast, and
faster now than they've ever moved before. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, now it's completely bananas, but
bananas is the right term. Yes.
Make some choices and commit, right? And so I do think it was helpful to the organization to have someone sort of authorized to come in and say, well, okay, we're going to take a risk here and get disinvest in this in order to build out this, et cetera.
And then, when did New York Magazine add all the other brands, all the other extensions? That was you, right? And remind me what they all are.
So that had started before I was there full time. That really came out of this recognition, as I was talking about, that something like New York Magazine's entertainment coverage was drawing a really loyal audience that we had. It was considered in some ways endemic for entertainment advertisers. And we saw an opportunity, at the time, this is the era of like the Gawker portfolio and all these, kind of like specialized brands. We were like, well, we're sort of sitting on that as well. And can we more clearly communicate to our audience and our partners that if you are an entertainment fan who's like really smart about it and wants to lean in and obsessed with culture, we have the destination, the preeminent destination for you. And at the time felt that because New York Magazine as a whole was like general interest, that there was an opportunity to just declare ourselves like, we're the expert in this thing.
And it was the Strategist?
So it started as, actually, I think Grub Street, was the first of food, and then Vulture, culture and entertainment, Intelligencer, which covers politics and news and business, and The Cut for women.
And they were all digital-only brands, right?
Correct,
okay.
Yeah, and then like ladder up into so you can basically, our audiences have their cake and eat it too, in terms of if you want the complete picture and want to kind of navigate across categories, you absolutely can. You go to the nymag.com homepage, or if you just want to obsess in one area, we go basically deep and wide. Okay. So the Strategist is the one that once I was there full time, we created that, which is, for those who aren't familiar with it, I'll just give a little plug. It's the best shopping recommendation site on the internet.
Yeah, Wirecutter, we don't need that. Okay.
No, Wirecutter's also very good.
So let me ask you this question.
Strategist is more fun.
I've never asked this question before. In hindsight, looking back, would you have done anything differently, knowing what you know now?
In a nuanced way, a little bit, just in terms of that brand strategy in particular. So when we created the individual brands, the business model was really, the digital business model was advertising. And we subsequently launched a digital subscription. And in the context of the digital advertising business, whether you knew that the cut was part of New York Magazine or not, like maybe didn't matter so much. I mean, it got its DNA from New York Magazine. It's got its voice and sensibility from New York Magazine. And, you know, it became its own fulsome self also. But, you know, a luxury advertiser or a member of the audience or fan could just live by the cut, and whether it was associated with New York Magazine. Again, it didn't really matter from a business perspective anyway. And if anything, we wanted people to just like really know and love the cut or Vulture, right? But when we started the digital subscription, could have gone different directions, could have done individual subscriptions for each of the brands, for example. But we decided that the best course would be like treating New York Magazine as a full product.
Okay.
So you get all of it. And then we made, so following that choice, then suddenly you want that cut user to understand the value that they're getting in all of New York Magazine when they're even if they're originally only subscribing for the cut. So we made, to kind of tell that story and re-educate the audience, we have made subtle like design changes on the website, you know, made the New York Magazine logo more prominent in some areas, things like that. And we experiment with, we want to make sure that both someone who's obsessed with the cut and just obsessed with the cut knows that they are subscribing to the cut, because it's also a kind of weird experience, right? If you're just all you know is the cut, and then you get a paywall that says subscribe to New York Magazine, and you're like, what? Right? So we have to both address that user and then also address the user who may be like, I don't know if I want to subscribe
once
to just
subscriptions
this thing.
get into the mix, it gets much more complicated.
Exactly. So that's the place where had we from jump said this is going to land
I was
in a
also
subscription?
thinking, like, would you have started other brands or try to acquire a different brand? Would you have gone into news deeper or gone into like a DDM lifestyle deeper, anything like that?
Yeah. Well, we did actually, following our merger with Vox Media.
Okay.
The curve.
Because you had some overlapping brands with Vox, right?
Categories.
Categories.
Yeah. Although remarkably little, like one of the kind of great
And what year did the merger happen with?
The merger is at the end of 2019.
Okay, thank you. I just want to date everything.
Yeah. So, which I laugh a little because it was fall of 2019 that we did the merger. We had went into that with so much intention around like the kumbaya moment of like, we're all coming together and we're going to take the best of both. And it's, and, you know, really like rethink everything we do and just be this like beautiful, nimble, you know, wonderful place. And then a few months later, the pandemic happened and it was all like...
Yeah, it's like Mike Tyson, a punch in the face. Like, what do you do then?
Right. Which is its own kind of bonding and, you know, definitely helped create a cohesive, you know, we were truly like one company, but that was more born out of the trenches than we expected.
And what was it like as the merger went through over those couple years? And what was your role?
Yeah, it's been really good. It's been
Vox is a really well-run company too.
Yeah, well, thanks. So I'm, you know, a part of that, right, and president of the company. I think we have achieved what we set out to do in the merger. The theory was that there was so much, for lack of a better word, synergy in the respective portfolios, both across the brands and content categories, and then also in the business lines and where we had respective areas of expertise. And so there was a lot of just by way of example, New York Magazine came in with a digital subscription business or any kind of subscription business. We had the Strategist was a significant affiliate e-commerce business. So we had and leading New York Magazine was very focused on building a diversified revenue sustainable model, right? And then Vox Media had diversified in different ways.
And their big brands are?
So Eater, The Verge, obviously Vox, SB Nation, which is a network of 300 sort of community sites.
There's a community where we'll get to that in a sec.
Great. The Dodo. We acquired Group 9 a few years later,
Group
right?
9 was there too. So
yeah. So we have the Dodo, we have Thrillist, we have Pop Sugar.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what happened? And then PMC got involved somehow?
PMC.
It's like a whole history of the internet here.
I think every one of your episodes, one way or another, is
this one's really good. This is really interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So PNC, Jay Penske invested in the company a few years ago. So he's on our board, very supportive investor.
Okay, so between Penske, Vox, Group 9, and New York Mag, there's like 50, 60 brands there, right?
That's right. Although, I mean, we operate really independently from Penske and the portfolio. But
there's just a lot of brands under one sort of mixed match company. Okay, so now let's get forward to where we are today. So let's go back to, you're a lawyer, right? So but you don't practice, but everything happening in AI world, your law degree must be really interesting when you have some of these conversations.
As I said, I remember enough floats back to at least ask some questions or have some sense of like, could there be an antitrust concern there? Or could there be on the part of certain platforms?
Okay.
Or, hey, it feels like they're stealing our intellectual property.
Yeah, can we talk about that for a sec? Like, is it fair use or is it theft? And you're blocked? Like, tell me more about that. To me, that's the most interesting topic.
Yeah, no, it's a critical topic. And I think we need more clarity than we have right now from either regulators or, the courts.
But it feels like the regulator and the courts are going to take forever.
Right.
So the clarity is not happening.
Right.
And I know that New York Times, as of the February earnings call, they spent $10.8 million on the OpenAI lawsuit. Mm-hmm. I assume it's going to go up even more. I'm not sure if that includes even lawyers in-house. It's just a crazy amount of money you need to sue these trillion-dollar companies.
Yeah.
It's David versus Goliath.
Agree. So my little digression, but my kids, I have 2 boys and they're pretty into Star Wars. And when I think about the platform space and the relationship of the publishing industry to the platforms, I'm reminded of the Ewoks and, have this visual where we're all like, ee, with our little adorable homemade spears, right? Yeah. And then there's like an intergalactic laser battle with giant space ships and hyperspeed, like happening above us. And sometimes actually we're just collateral damage. Like occasionally they're intentionally pointing their lasers at us. And sometimes it's like they're pointing at each other. They're like, oh, I actually now want to be in the search business. So blah, blah. Or I want to be in the shopping business. Thank you. So blah, blah. Right.
Yeah, all the couponing. Boom. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you described the situation well. Yes.
And have you blocked any bots? Are you talking about that? Is that interesting? I know for a fact if you block one of them, they still find other ways
Yeah.
to get the data. Like you ask Perplexity, tell me everything that's happening in the New York Magazine world. Even if you're blocking them, they'll still go around through Reddit, through this and that, and find information they need.
You're right. And
It's the word I would use is porous. Like every
Yes.
publisher is porous. You don't realize it now. So you didn't realize it before. Now you realize all the deals you did just makes it openings everywhere to get your content.
right. And the value exchange where we have allowed access to our content is shifting.
Right.
And, so that's also a problem. So certainly, yes, I think part of the solution for publishers needs to be blocking as much as we can block. Even, I think it's going to continue to be whack-a-mole. They're just like,
But some friction helps with the conversation.
yes, that's right.
And are you talking to any of the AI companies? Because sometimes it's so hard to even have those conversations.
Sorry, which companies?
Any of the AI companies.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
And we have, we announced an OpenAI deal in the spring of
Yeah, we always joke
2024.
that anyone who did an OpenAI deal will never do the second OpenAI deal. Okay, so tell me more about community and SB Nation, because that's fascinating for me.
Well, I think, and maybe this relates to the advent of this new AI content world as well. People, our audiences, and certainly the SB Nation audiences, really value the connection to the to the individuals who are leading their team sites, and then also to each other. So we have these really robust commenting,
Like Reddit-esque?
like I'd say better.
Okay, better.
But yeah, in the sense that they're like an expression of fandom.
Okay.
And what I think differentiates from Reddit is layered on top is journalism and expertise and sort of authority. So it's like it probably sits in between something like old Sports Illustrated and Reddit.
Okay.
And I think especially where other forums for the kind of lively conversation about sports have deteriorated, there's a real space, a real white space for SB Nation to continue to grow. So,
And the SB Nation, it's all teams pretty much, and it's just deep diving into the fandom of those teams.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it feels like that has so much power in today's world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you might not have known that 10 years ago, but as the world evolves, it feels like it's very powerful. Okay. Google Zero, are you thinking about that inside your company?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody in the industry is thinking about it. And we see it. We see it in our traffic. We see it in.
Oh, I just published something on LinkedIn yesterday. Today is July 23rd that just said like all the traffic across every website pretty much from SimilarWeb is down 10 to 15% in the past year. Whatever the number is.
Right. Yeah, that's not.
You just see the line going down.
And there was, I think, I saw this morning, Pew Research published some things, again, not surprising, but more authoritative, I suppose, that AI overview, like when a user is served AI overviews, they don't click
Yeah.
through. They click through half as much. And by the way, the sources for those AI overviews tend to be, Reddit and Wikipedia, not necessarily news publishers. And
So I'm at a company and they're running a test for me. And they basically asked 9 AI agents, tell me what happened in news yesterday. And then it runs like 1 million crawls, 1 million queries over a week or two. And then it comes back and it tells you, here's the sources most used for that one question. And I haven't seen the results yet, but it's like, to me, it feels like that's really informative based on other sort of surveys I've seen that feel like they're not as accurate.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. As far as Google Zero goes, it's an area, Nilay Patel, for example, the editor of The Verge, has been
He's
one
fabulous.
of the early
Yes.
people beating that drum and talking about it. And I'd say, in as much as we're seeing it, we're also as trying to be as prepared, have been over the last few years, seeing this writing on the wall of at least a decline. I think zero is probably a galvanizing thing. It's not necessarily
Sounds good.
literally going to be zero, but I do think it will be less, significantly less. And, we're already seeing those trends, right? So it is like a forcing function to redouble our efforts.
That we all should have done 10 years ago.
Yeah, right.
That's what I say, going back 10 years ago, or like what we've done differently. It's like, I would not have relied on Google. I realized it's going to go away one day, and then we made them so famous, and now they're screwing us all over. Like, what could you have done differently back then? But it's like, who knows?
Right. Well, and I think just going back to the idea of value exchange, there was a value exchange at the moment.
You index
Yeah.
all my sites and you send me traffic. And it wasn't called stealing then at all.
Right. I think two things have changed. One, we are no longer going to be getting the traffic in nearly the same way. And then the second is that they're using our information differently as well. So it's well beyond indexing, right? They're using our, by the way, expensive and fact-checked and professional work.
You know how often the AI engines get the answers wrong?
Right.
All the time. It's crazy. And we accept it, which is bizarre.
But they are functionally almost a publisher in a way that they were not previously. And I think that's a really...
But the law doesn't say that today, right? Section 230?
I think it...
I agree with you, but...
Well, right. I mean, again, I don't know enough law to answer that question, but I would like to... I do think that pressing on Section 230 in a different way, because if the original intention was like, hey, we're basically just a digital bulletin board or something, and like, can't blame us if somebody writes something unpleasant or libelous on a digital bulletin board, and it's like in the physical world, a telephone pole or something. Okay, understand that. However, they're now creating, like, if they want to claim fair use, then they've created a transformative.
They sort of have their cake and eat it too.
Exactly. Yeah, so either pick a lane, right? Like if you're creating something transformative that's no longer our thing, then you're responsible for it. And when it is not correct, then then you should be responsible for the libel.
Okay, let's talk about journalism overall. So you have how many writers in your organization? Hundreds and hundreds, I assume?
Yeah.
How do you feel about all the journalism out there and all the writers and what they're doing and what's your whole point of view on that?
I think journalism is more important than ever these days. I think especially, there's, and the reason I say more important, obviously, it's always very important. However, with the rise of misinformation and now the, layer of AI kind of slop as well.
I love the word slop.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course. It's just very sloppy, the slop, right? All the more reason that that the function of journalism is like indispensable. And I'm concerned that it is hard and becoming harder to do journalism in that context. And what that means, but again, that's kind of a galvanizing challenge as well, because it's really important that we're out there and, reporting truth and educating audiences, and you cannot take those things for granted, as it turns out. And I think the society probably has for a long time, and we we need it really badly.
Yeah, and one of my concerns is always the publishers don't have a galvanizing point of view to get out there in the ecosystem so they all know how hard it is and what we're feeling. It feels like there's some articles here and there in the Journal and the New York Times, but nothing overarching about here's what's really happening to the publisher world explained in a nice, simple way to the general audience. I don't think that exists today.
What do you think the message would need
sort of
to
what
be
we talked about.
would,
It's David versus Goliath. It used to be they took our content and they indexed it and they gave us traffic. That's all changed. It's they're taking advantage of the laws or having their cake and eat it too. Just whatever 10 overarching themes, we could all get together and have X amount of journalists all sort of try to convey the same message out there. I think it would help. I think right now we're a little all over the place and it's inconsistent. And there's an asymmetry, my new favorite word, of data. Because like we know a little bit about our data, you know about your data, but the AI companies know everything and they just don't share much.
Right.
Like yesterday I heard that there's 330 million OpenAI queries a day, right? Which is basically one per person. And then I heard someone else say that only 30% are actually asking about like news and information. The other 70% are like rewrite something for me. So what does that all mean? And what do we do about that? And how do you then get the public behind the publishers and journalism to say, this is what we all need to do together? Like, I don't think that exists today. And that makes me sad.
That's interesting. Well, I hope we...
Well, it feels like that's a good New York Magazine.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm afraid that these stories do come, I've read them. I'm sure you've read some of them too, but they maybe are preaching the choir a little bit more, right? And,
well, I guess you need to get it out there to everyone instead of us.
Exactly.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Like you ask your siblings,
right?
What it is, and it's like they don't understand. Maybe in New York they do, but the rest of this country, they feel like they don't understand it.
Right.
Okay, one more question.
Of course.
Because I saw you on the street and you said you don't have an answer to this. I'm asking you anyway. What are your favorite hobbies?
So I thought about it since I saw you.
Oh, that's not fair.
Well, that I had to think about it indicates that there's no obvious hobby, right? So I have, like I mentioned, I have two kids.
Star Wars.
10 and 12, they like Star Wars. One has kind of like general interest, like we go to a soccer game, like that kind of thing. The other has leaned in hard to transit fandom, and he loves subways and like especially subways, but like rail writ large. And so we spend a lot, like when there's a service change, or certainly when the 211T came out, which
is that the new one?
The new one,
okay.
Yeah, the new one, which has the open gangway. It's called a gangway. We like waited for 2 hours for it to come.
That's fun though.
It's super fun. Yeah, I'm going next weekend the weekend after next. There's this maybe wasn't on your radar, but it's 200 years of British Rail is being celebrated this year. And
so you're going to London to experience that?
Oh, I'm going to Derby, which is 2
wow.
hours away, where they're bringing together, examples, antique and new, of the greatest of British Rail.
It makes me think of the Transit
Greatest Gathering.
Transit Museum.
Shout out to the Transit Museum. They're amazing. We also do their nostalgia rides. It turns out I have a hobby. It's just that it's
my favorite transit story
Yes.
was when the trains were getting overcrowded and there was 10 cars to a station. Someone had the idea of put 12 cars, and the first and the last never get off. You have to go to 2 or 11, 2 or 10 to get off. And I'm like, that's such an interesting idea, but it will never work.
Yeah, no, it would
never work. Well, Pam Wasserstein, thank you so much for a fabulous conversation. I am blown away about all the information about New York Mag, Vox, PMC, and Group 9 put it all together, because I sort of knew it tangentially, didn't know it that well. Listeners, thank you for listening. Have any questions, let us know. Producer Andrew, thank you so much for everything all the time. Have a good day.